I tend to, sometimes I go into this little bubble inside myself where I say, can I? And it was something that my mom always told me growing up, and it was a line from a show from The Secret Garden. So my character, Colin, had a song called, well, in the song he said, you can do it. And I remember before every exam, every show, anything I ever had, my mom always says that line. She always says, you can, and I have to say, do it.
Hello and welcome to The Good Chat, where we interview activists, artists, entrepreneurs and personalities, basically anyone who has experiences and insights that empower and inspire. Today we have Taryn Mamo Cefai, and we'll be interviewing her about her journey so far and what's coming next for her. And before we start, I'd like to thank Tech.mt, People and Skin, and Grace's Valletta, which is where we're actually filming this episode. Thank you, Taryn, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
My first question is your journey so far. How did you start in the performing arts? I believe it was on TV first.
Actually, it was in school first. I was always a theatre person. When I was younger, you know, I was always involved. First, I started with ballet. In fact, I spent 18 years of my life doing ballet, and that was, I guess, the biggest journey of my life, and that's where everything else started to happen. And I remember at school, I went to St. Monica in Gżira, and they always used to put up a play. Every year it was the Prize Day school play, and it was a big deal, you know, with auditions. You'd have to go and write your name on the board to audition for a particular character. Then we'd have auditions. It was very professionally done. And it was one of those things which always got me excited. Every year I want to take part, every year I want a good part as well. And I remember when I was 11, we did The Secret Garden, which is quite an interesting play, especially when it's in a school where we're all girls. And I got to play the part of Colin, which is a guy, in fact. But I remember Edward Mircea had come from Stagecoach to see the play, and he gave a couple of us a scholarship. And that's where it all started to happen. Then I went to Stagecoach, fell in love with theatre in general, realized that I also loved singing and acting as much as I loved dance. And then I remember I went to, and this is actually quite funny, I went to St. Aloysius for my 6th form. But I wanted to get into school, not like any other person, because good grades and good schooling, no, because they had their soirée. And the soirée was the best thing about 6th form to me. So I remember I worked really hard, got the grades and got in, and then I did soirée. And then from there, I remember one of my mentors at Stagecoach, Denise Mulholland, said, you know, you should really try to go abroad. And I said, I mean, really, do I have the talent enough? When you're abroad, it's very competitive, and things really do get to a professional level where you have to live and breathe and really love it. So I remember while everyone else was studying for their A-levels, not that I wasn't, but I decided to go up to the UK and audition, and out of 4 schools I got into 3, ended up choosing one. Obviously my parents, that was me, Marelli, stress.
How old were you?
I was 17. At the time when I went up to the UK. In fact, I had to stay with a host family because I was quite young to live on my own. And I went up and I did my diploma in musical theatre. So it's been quite a journey. Obviously, at that point in time, also, I was doing my ballet A-level, normal A-levels, because I always wanted to have a backup, which thank God I did, because then I came back and I went to uni. But it was an experience, you know, living in London, living alone.
How long were you there for?
I was there for a year to do my diploma, and it was quite an exciting time to be alone. Obviously, in the beginning, you get a bit homesick because you're seeing all your friends going out. In Malta, have a very good social life, whereas over there, it was, you know, homeschool, and it was quite intense. The course was very intense. You're dancing 24/7, and we'd finish school at 8, go home, you'll be exhausted. But then I remember I came back, and I said, what now? And I had a bit of a moment where I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure what course I was taking at university. At St. Aloysius, if you go into the arts, you're always pushed into law, you know, and things, and languages, etc. And I sort of lost that interest while I was away, and I said, what can I do now? So I decided to go into communications, media and communications, which is obviously what I guess nowadays I'm really in, and it's the field that I excel in. But back then I didn't know what I was going in for. And I remember that was the summer as well, I auditioned for my first TV role. And I remember it was a gamble, because somebody called me and said, listen, they're looking for actors and actresses to be on TV. I said, TV? No, ma tarax TV Malti, le. U dak iż-żmien kienet hawn ta' tabu about Maltese TV, what I don't really know if I want to do it. I said, really, you know what, I have nothing else going on. I'm going into uni this winter, so why not? And that's where I got my first role on TV, which was in Il Clicca, and I did that for 3 years.
And I remember, just to stop you, because you mentioned the whole taboo of Maltese TV, but I remember Clicker really changed,
Very much
I think,
so.
the landscape of Maltese, drama series. Because I remember
it was very different.
Yes, they cast as well a lot of young
and people who were not known, which was
Exactly.
good, people who had never seen before on TV. The actual script was very interesting. It wasn't the usual drama, and it was very light, very fun, very Friends meets Gossip Girl meets Sex and the City.
I think
it was very
Martina
fun.
Nation, no?
Yes, it was V Squared who did that. And then I remember I said last sec, no more TV. I said, I'm exhausted, I'm going to focus on university, try get, the good grades. Dak iż-żmien kont wasalt kważi fil-final. And I had my last year and my thesis. But then Steve Dalli had approached me with Strada Stretta, to which I initially said, no more TV, no, I can't do it, it's too many hours.
And why no more TV?
Because it's so many hours, Dav, and unfortunately we still live in a culture where the arts are not appreciated. And not only that, it's the artist which is not appreciated, because in reality I'm sure that a lot of these big productions do make enough money, because there are also people who are involved, but unfortunately the actors are maybe given a bit of a...
Having said that, being so small, there's an element of economies of scale as well, even I think for the production, because
100%,
it is, I think it's kind of this pressure all around, I think, you're right.
The budgets are what they are at the moment, and unfortunately things will take time to change. They are changing slowly, which is really nice to see, but it's a slow change. And at that time I said that I can't really give so much time to a project when I have my final. But Steve and Justin are just the loveliest people, and they said this role was made for you. So when I went and I auditioned, and then once you're there and you're auditioning and you're reading the script, it's just a moment of you fall in love with the character and you get so emotionally invested in her. I said, I hope I get it now. It came to a point where I said I really want it. I really loved her. In fact, I did 2 years of Strada Stretta, and that's where I guess everything took off. And that was the beginning of social media as well. Niftakar, as I was finishing off, it was mostly Facebook back then, but in my last few episodes, I remember Instagram really taking over. And I said, okay, this is a new platform, and I guess it's something that we should look into. Because I remember all my friends started going on Instagram. It was an interesting platform, but back then I never ever thought it was a platform that you could monetize, and nowadays, I mean, Instagram is one of my main sources of income. So it's a bit crazy, but I guess that's where everything started, and that's where people started to notice who I was. I was getting endorsements, I was getting other jobs, voiceovers, presenting shows, things that to me I never thought would ever happen. I was a little girl at school auditioning for a school play, and this is where I am now. So it's still very surreal. And Kelly, I walk in the street and somebody stops me, I will sometimes doubt if they're speaking to me at all. As I say, kif jista' jkun taf kif, and it's such an amazing feeling, and it's so surreal, but it also comes with a lot of responsibility.
And in fact, I wanted to ask you about when it comes to social media, because when it comes to being a content creator, whatever you want to call it, influencer, Instagrammer, I don't know what you want to call it, but there is an element of sharing your life, and you do kind of share, whether it's your relationship, whether it's what you're doing at the moment, if you're moving house. So you are sharing also your personal life out there. How does it feel? Do you kind of hesitate sometimes, or is this something that you just took a decision and say, listen, I'm happy to do this?
I mean, obviously, having your life in the public eye, and especially on social media, comes with its pros and its cons. It's very exciting that I get to share such a big part of my life and all the projects going on, and that's always fun and dandy. But I also try to share the moments where I guess I'm not as happy or as perfect, and I always want to try to explain this to people that nobody's perfect, and social media is a really good reflection of the best parts of somebody's life, and that you have to keep in mind. Not everyone feels comfortable sharing their bad sides, and that's fine. Fl-aħħar mill-aħħar, it is your platform and you get to share what you enjoy and what you really want. But nowadays there's also a big pressure of trying to be real, which I completely agree with. But it's not for everyone as well. Not everyone feels comfortable, saying, listen, I have this, or listen, but at the same time, I think it's good that content creators are becoming much more, I guess...
real.
Yes, and comfortable being themselves. Actually, now we have all these filters and all these fun things, but it's also nice that people get to see you for who you really are.
Yes, and I think this is a conversation we had with Tez in a past episode about stuff, especially, when you're young and you're so impressionable and you see everyone everyone's life being so perfect and everyone looking so perfect. And it can, when it comes to mental health, I think it is important to have that balance. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's up to the person who's creating the content, what they're comfortable as well sharing.
Exactly, because you never know how they really feel as well and how comfortable they are. So I think it's important. But what I really love is when I share things, Aliyah, they're just my day-to-day things, and other people just relate to them. For example, the house. I feel like I'm on a journey with around 60 people who follow me, who are all in the same situation completely. And we have like this little group between us where I always feel so comfortable. I feel like they're my friends and my sisters and, my cousins. And in reality, it's literally like, you have another family on social media, which is so nice because you don't feel alone as well. Because it's funny saying this, but even though they follow you, Blama Street, they really help you get through things that maybe you're struggling with, especially with things like the house. I've gotten so many different opinions and suggestions. Thank you, for really helping me. So it's also a nice way of, a nice means of communication.
And I think it's also something where you're wasting less time. So people who follow you maybe get to know about certain things without having to do their own research. And you as well, if you're asking your community to give you recommendations, you as well are saving time.
With things like paint and the bathrooms with tiles over and l-affarijiet li ħorġu bihom are just amazing. You would have overlooked them, but
there's definitely
a
positive side to social media. I agree 100%. And when it comes to sort of the negative side, have you ever had any negative comments? Was there something that really threw you off in terms of messages or comments, or do you feel it's mostly positive?
I can't say I've received a lot of negative feedback, which is very rare, and I've realized that maybe I was one of the lucky ones, because I do realize sometimes when people write articles about other content creators and influencers, there is a big negative backlash, and it doesn't seem to be the same with me, although recently kien hemm waħda about the house, but these, if they write articles about your house, ħadd ma saqsejt. I just put up that it's been 2 years and I've been working, and tara l-kummenti, mela jibix trad-dar, mela. Obviously not, I can't control what is written about me, but when I do write things and when I share my opinions, I don't think I've ever really received much negativity. And you have those random messages here and there, people who try to bring you down. For example, I recently had somebody, I share a lot about sustainability, a sustainable lifestyle, but ways how to make your life and how to sort of try and really adopt sustainability in your day-to-day life. But then recently I had somebody who said, but you're not a vegan, so you can't be sustainable. And they catch you off guard, because I said, they have a point, but at the same time, just because you're not 100% there doesn't mean that because you're 50, it doesn't make a difference. And I spoke to this person, I said, listen, please stop discouraging people, because what you're saying is that me giving this amount is not enough. When in reality, maybe that person is making an effort to give this amount, and that's already a good step, and it's already a step in the right direction. So let's not belittle other people because they have not reached the 100% of perfection, because people take time, and we live in a world where things are expensive as well, and lifestyles are different, so you never know what that person is going through. So it's important that on social media we really don't bring other people down just because they are not like us or they have not reached the maximum of what they can do, because people do things slowly. Yeah. And even, just saying no to a straw today, even though you said yes yesterday, already is a difference. It already makes a difference.
And I agree. I think it's not black or white. Exactly. When it comes to sustainability especially, it takes baby steps. And any baby step is going to be a positive.
Exactly.
So I agree 100%. You can't expect people to switch their lifestyle from this to this, and maybe that comment possibly, or that person was obviously, as you said, trying to bring you down, because at the end of the day, you can't expect people.
You get their point, Ash. I try to put myself in their shoes and I say, I get it and I understand. But just because I haven't reached that, it doesn't mean that what I'm doing is not enough.
Absolutely.
Because whatever it is, every step towards the right direction is a step.
Absolutely.
And naqra, I think people are really coming to terms with things. And I would much rather have somebody not throw rubbish on the floor, because right now, here we start from the things which are basic rather than say everyone has to be vegan.
Exactly.
So I really want people to actually think, listen, I'm not going to throw rubbish on the floor, because we are still at that point, especially in Malta, where people do not think that's a bad thing. Absolutely. So let's try and educate from the bottom up and try and really work together. I mean, all summer we've been working on a campaign to try and help, and even kids, teaching kids that it's hard. Jekk inti tmur id-dar and a kid watches their parents throw things on the floor. So it's hard for that child to say, that's wrong, because that's what they've seen for their whole life. So the idea is to change the mindset before we try and reach the perfect.
There are so many kind of steps that need to be taken until the whole vegan, and all that. So yes, I'm 100% with you, and I love that we're talking about the subject of sustainability. When it comes to, you're also on radio, so you are a content creator, influencer, you're an actor, you're also on theatre, and so radio. You've been how long now on radio?
2 years now. In January.
2 years. And you've also have your own podcast together with Helena, right? It's called No Filter, so look for it. It's a great listen. In terms of talking, because you talk about quite, vulnerable subjects on the podcast. What has been the subject so far that you had the most feedback on, maybe?
I think the one about catcalling and safety on the streets for women. And that was a subject that really hit me hard, because we tend to shrug these things aside. And I notice myself on a day-to-day basis, I will cross the road or do things that come so naturally to me that I never stop and say, but this is what, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't need to do this. And I remember before the podcast came out, Elaine and I thought about, we really do think about the subjects a lot, and we try to find things that we personally speak about in the office. This is how it all started. We're having a chat about one of the subjects in the office, and we said, this is not fair. And we needed to find a venting zone, and that turned into a podcast. That's how it all started. We used to gossip, insomma. Stay bickering between ourselves. I think everyone needs to hear these things. I'm sure people go through the same things on a daily basis. And with the catcalling, I put up a poll on my personal Instagram, and I asked how many people had been through it, experiences, and the amount of people who messaged me with their personal experiences. Li bikkuk. People who are groped, people who are harassed, people who are abused on things like buses on their way homes. And I just sat there, and that was a moment where I realized the power of social media, because I sat there and I read their messages, and I could not even bring myself to say anything, because what am I supposed to say to a person who's been through this? And I told them, thank you for sharing, because these are experiences of other people who felt comfortable enough, who feel like they know me and enough, I guess, to message me with their most vulnerable of experiences and most, I guess, negative of moments in their lives.
But you're also bringing kind of the subject to light, that listen, it's maybe not okay.
Of course.
And I think it's important also for these people who have been through, to validate maybe the fact that they did feel uncomfortable. Possibly, a few years ago, it might have been shrugged off, and said, we are like, why are you making a fuss on certain things? So I think it is important that we do talk about these things.
And not to look away. It's so important not to look away. If somebody else is going through it, the last thing they need is for you to look away. They need you to be braver than they are in that moment and stand up for them and say, this is wrong, and really and speak to that person, and even men. And that was something that we highlighted at the end of the podcast. We said we really hope that men can really come into the conversation as much as women. Sure, right? Women, we can't speak about it, we can't stand up for each other. But it's also important that men are brought into the conversation, and especially boys growing up.
And it could be as well that some men maybe who do it, it's because their friends are doing it, and so the more education there is about, listen, it's not okay to do this, the more maybe things will change as we go along. Things
are changing, and I think especially nowadays women feel much more comfortable to speak up, especially if someone else has spoken up before them. So what we encourage people to do is obviously speak up, because if you speak up, then everything else, there's no going back. It can only go forward. But I think that was one of my favorite episodes, because we got so real with people's experiences, and we took those, we turned them into a podcast, but it was also learning from them. And now I am much more aware of what goes on around me, much more aware of my own behavior. And I've had a couple of interesting conversations in bars and in places where I've seen other women go through it, and I've said, listen, are you okay? Do you want to get out of here? And I also realized that other people are much more aware of what is going on.
Is there a particular episode that maybe you can think of that is...
Recently, actually, we were abroad, and I was in a bar, and I saw a woman feeling very uncomfortable. But you never know, maybe it's her character, maybe she's shy, etc. And I say, and obviously, nibda ngħidlhom, I'm going to go speak to her, I'm going to go speak. My friends, tindaħanx. Imma I don't find it in myself. So then I took the opportunity, I saw her going to the bathroom, and I went behind her. And I said, are you okay? She told me, he's making me feel like, I told her, why don't you just leave? This is your opportunity. Just say, listen, thank you very much for this evening, and just go. She told me, I feel embarrassed. I said, but if you're not comfortable, I thought if you need anything, I'm going to be on the table right next to you. Let me know. And as luck would have it, she went back, said thank you, and she left. And before she left, she looked me in the eyes, and it was like maybe the little bit of encouragement she needed in the bathroom. Tell all these bathroom stories. Imma vera, it's amazing. And to me, that was like my good deed of the week. Maybe I helped somebody to really do, and I hope that if I'm in the same situation, somebody will do the same to me. And that's why I wanted to do it to her. Things.
Well done.
Life just...
You basically helped her.
Yes, and because I hope somebody will help me if I'm in the same situation as well.
So, talking about travel, you also launched a travel blog recently. Yes. I know there was an issue with timing, with the pandemic.
Exactly.
But can you tell us the story behind it and maybe, what's coming up for it?
So the travel blog was a bit of a gennata, obviously. I'm a Virgo, I'm a perfectionist, so it took me time to get things to how I want them to be. And then I wanted to, obviously, once Linda ħaġa ġa f'moħħi, I had to get it done. And obviously, it was not the right time. I admit it now. I look back and I say, this was completely wrong. I launched a travel blog when travel was off the radar. But I remember the idea, the first time I thought of launching and creating a travel blog, apart from I've loved travel all my life and I really enjoy it. And it is, to me, my happy place. It's the one thing that when I lose myself and I just immerse myself into another country, another culture, and it's just very exciting. And the food is great. I'm a huge foodie, so to me, different food, that's part of why I love traveling as well. But I remember we were climbing Kilimanjaro. It was, I think, one of the most incredible and life-changing experiences of my life. And while I was on that trip, I said, I'd really like to start a travel blog, because I remember when I went up, I looked at a lot of other people's blogs, and that was how you get the real insight into what you're expected. I mean, nothing prepares you for a 6-day trip up the mountain, but if you can at least prepare yourself mentally and physically and emotionally, the blogs were them. And I remember when I was on that trip, I told one of my friends, and she turned to me and she said, but your life isn't interesting enough for you to write a travel blog. Dak il-ħin, I was like, okay. She said, but you haven't been to exciting places. Like, why would you write a travel blog? And this, you can either take that, go home and cry, or you can take that and say, Sanorik. And I remember I went home and it took me ages to even get the courage to start writing, and now we have a blog, but obviously it still needs to be populated properly. I have a lot more things I want to write about. It's finding the time that sometimes is a big hassle. I'd love to clone myself. My mom always says I should clone you. I
know the feeling.
But yes, timing is a bit of an issue. But yes, travel is definitely where I want my brand to go, and I hope that it will sort of be the main focus of both my social and also the blog and everything about it.
Will come, I'm sure.
Yes, right now the house is taking up a lot of time. And trying to do a house of character on your own
it's very exciting. I mean, the house keeps coming up.
Immensely exciting. At the same time, it also takes up a lot of energy, time, and even mentally drains you, because you're always thinking, and you have to shop around as well and be clever in the way that you do things. So it is very, very time consuming. So I'm hoping that once the house is done, which hopefully will be beginning of next year, then my energy can be focused on the travel blog again, hopefully.
And not just the blog, obviously traveling as well.
And traveling in general. But that I've managed to do. It's the writing, is the sitting down and focusing that is a bit of a problem at the moment.
And going back to Kilimanjaro, so you said you climbed Kilimanjaro. First of all, why did you decide to do it? And sort of, can you tell us about like what was the biggest challenge when you actually were doing it?
It was the most random situation. I had just broken up, and I remember my friend told me, "Come, join me on this walk." I said, "All right, I'll come." It was with Keith Marshall, who is a Kashajen on his own, but he's such a lovely person. And he won't let you stand down from a challenge. He'll push you to take it on head first. So I remember I started going on these walks in summer, and then we had to come to a decision, and they said, "Listen, you're in or you're out." And dak il-ħin, we looked at each other, and I said, "I'm in. Let's do it." This was something that I was going to do, not for myself. I was going to do it for somebody else. I was taking on this challenge for kids who need it more than I do. So obviously we spent months and months doing a lot of fundraisers, and it was exciting. We're a really good group, a group of 20 Maltese who climbed together. So also you get to know everyone from different walks of life. So once you start to bond with certain people, and it's fun. You go up as 20 friends, but up there you really become family, because you have to pick people up from the floor. You have to
you have
really
to do
adapt.
Specific training to actually climb the mountain.
Yes, we did a lot of intense training. Nothing specific, but it was to get your stamina up, because up there, really your mind really takes over and convinces you that you can't do it.
So you're climbing for how many days?
You're climbing for, I think, 4 or 5 days, and then climbing back down for another 2.
So you're climbing, so can you just give us, so you're climbing, camping, I would assume, like you...
Mela, le kollox out in the open, thankfully you have your Sherpas as well, who carry some of your belongings, and you carry some on your back yourself, so you're allowed around 10 kilos, because obviously ma tixtabihom ħafna, because they're used to it. To them, they climb, jibqaw għaddejn u intem għaddej, like ma tistax tlaħħaq, trying to take breaks, and it was mad. It was very exciting at the time. I remember we used to climb for 6 to 8, even 9 sometimes hours at a go, and then you have to acclimatize, which is basically getting used to the different pressure, exactly. So making sure that your body reacts well, because if it doesn't, you'll have to go back down. But none of us had any...
so everyone made it?
Everyone made it, everyone. Amazing. Even people who had struggles and difficulties still managed to make it, which was nice to see as well. And you just become very close. So, and then we went down to Ethiopia, which was what we raised the money for, and we helped, well, we didn't do much, but they built a school for kids with disabilities, because unfortunately there it's considered a taboo, so the kids are thrown on the streets if they're disabled, unfortunately, or they have some sort of disability. And so this was a school to house kids who were thrown out, unfortunately, have nowhere to live. So they have education, they can sleep there as well. And it was a really nice cause. And we got to see also what the team the year before has built, which was a school, which was also very nice. In some way, you just learn, and it's quite a reality check. We also went to Mother Teresa's house there as well. And that was a very in your face, because there were a lot of adults. So I remember quite impressionata ħafna, more than I ever imagined. Okay. But then I came back, and
humbles you, I guess.
Oh, you start saying, I worry about the biggest chuchati, because that's what they really are. On a day-to-day basis, we have no real struggles. It's perspective, obviously, yes. But compared to what we saw and what we witnessed there, we are very lucky.
Yeah. But it's good. I think it's good as well to see it, because you, like you said, you put perspective on kind of your life, and kind of you appreciate what you have as well.
And your family as well. I think I came back I was so excited to see my family again. Spent 6 weeks in Africa in total, because then we went down South Africa as well. I had a little holiday afterwards.
Nice, well deserved.
Exact. We needed it. Just to explain to you about the mountain, basically, you can be the fittest, the most athletic person on the planet. It does not mean that you won't get affected by altitude sickness. It's something that's genetic. You can either have it or you don't. That was something that we were going to find out and actually realize when we're up there. So that's why you have to test the levels and make sure that you're not going to get any altitude sickness and whatever. But I remember when we came down, if we were okay, especially we were told, listen, you should consider another one.
You wouldn't?
I don't, at this point in my life, I don't think so. It was an experience. I learned from a lot from it, but I think I have other things to give now as well. So I'd like to do much more voluntary work rather than climb a mountain. I never say never. That's what I say.
In life, what lights you up the most? What makes you happy?
Oh, apart from travel, my family. I love my family, my friends, and experiences with them, and watching everyone grow, and even us. We're very close, my family and I have a sister, a younger sister, who's 2 years younger than me, and we're very, very close. We were close when we were young, and we just grew closer in a way. So even seeing her grow and everything, food makes me happy, wine makes me happy. Just life, sometimes you find those moments. I think happiness comes in doses. Sometimes you'll be really stressed and doing all these crazy things, but you'll be sitting on a bench doing nothing at all. I'm so lucky, I'm so blessed. And those are those moments where everything comes together.
True. And what's the best advice you ever received?
Oh, this is a good one.
Or possibly, maybe what advice would you give yourself maybe a few years back, if that is easier?
I think, never to doubt myself. I tend to, sometimes I go into this little bubble inside myself where I say, can I? And it was something that my mom always told me growing up, and it was a line from a show from The Secret Garden. So my character, Colin, had a song called, in the song he said, "You can do it." And I remember before every exam, every show, anything I ever had, my mom always says that line. She always says, "You can," and I have to say, "Do it." And I think that can really be applied to anything in life, and anything that I have to yet go through and I have already been through. That I always have to remind myself, yes, I can do it. Because we tend to doubt ourselves more than anyone else around us. So just reminding yourself, Lee, you are your biggest obstacle is a good little thing to keep in mind constantly.
I think it's, from the people I've been interviewing, it's something very consistent that comes out, that your thoughts, kind of getting lost in the negative. I mean, Neil Ajus was someone who said it while he was swimming, that he couldn't let himself get in the, whirlwind of negative thoughts, because obviously, your mind is so powerful.
100%.
So like you're saying, kind of, we have to kind of mentor ourselves as well when it comes to taking decisions.
And it's very difficult to do. I mean, when you're on a mountain and your body and your mind is telling that your body can't do it, it's hard for your body to take over because your mind will always control the rest of it. So it's really something you need to keep telling yourself over and over again in any situation that you're in, be it negative, be it positive. So I think that's something that's my mom always said to me before anything, and I think I will always keep. And if I could frame it, I would.
Just simple, you can do it.
You can do it.
Yes. So when it comes to obviously your journey so far, if there's someone maybe watching who's just starting out in performing arts and entertainment or maybe content creation, what would you tell them maybe? What advice would you give them?
Work hard and be consistent, and take every opportunity that comes your way. I remember when I was younger, kont inġenina, my mom used to tell me, "Mama, kif ħatlaħaq ma kollox? I still have there's a will, there's a way, ma, there's a will, there's a way." And when you have school and education in Malta is very, very important, and it's very, very enforced. So I always believe that education is important, but extracurricular things are just as important, and they really form and shape who you are as a person. So if you really want to get into the arts and want to do this and you're passionate about it, because that's the most important thing, having passion, then you can just do it.
And the last question, what's next for Taryn? Do you have any exciting projects coming up, or maybe new podcast episodes, travels?
Yes, the podcast we'd really like to keep going, because I think it's something that has really touched people more than we could ever imagine. Travels, definitely, lots of travels planned, so stay tuned. Lots of exciting places, especially beginning of next year coming up. Hopefully finishing off the house, because that's a project in itself, and that was one of my biggest projects, and we're hoping to do something with it because it was such an exciting journey. I said I really want to share this with people out there and show people that you can do it, because lots of people were telling me, "My old house of character, she's
because you went from a total shell, right? Or a total.
It was not an abandoned time, it was quite miskina. It was a very sad house, and it needed a lot of TLC, and it needed somebody who, like me, was just wanted to give her a lot of love and was ready and had love to give as well. So it's just nice that I see people nowadays look more at houses of character and don't give up on the process, because yes, it is an exhausting process. I can't say it's not, and it takes a lot of time and money and effort. But it's also a rewarding process, and I just want to share what I did with people, so that if anyone is going through the same situation, they can, feel like, okay, I'm not alone and these struggles are normal. Or that's something that I always felt like, ma jimbis, possibly. But no, they are normal. So I just want to share my journey with everyone else. Hopefully more blogs. But I guess, I don't know what the next year brings. I always, I look back and I say, Lami, what I've done this year. I never imagined I would do this and this and this and this, and these opportunities would come my way. So I guess, in reality, no one knows what's in store.
I'm sure lots of exciting stuff.
I hope so.
Thank you very much for being our guest here on The Good Chat.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to you guys for watching and listening, and we'll see you on the next episode next week.